All right, guys, I'm starting again. It turns out, since I'm doing it outside, the Wi-Fi wasn't the strongest, so I had to go off Wi-Fi to restart. Anyway, as I was saying before I get started on today's topic of tech tools, I wanted to give a shout out to my friends Madeline and Sarah. We basically kind of support each other like accountability partners. For example, when one of us is struggling with motivation to do work that day, we'll reach out to the others and either go meet at a coffee shop or just sort of somehow keep each other motivated. And that happened this morning. I sat down and I just felt tired and I just didn't want to get started. I knew Sarah was in meetings, so I texted Madeline and then I started to head to a coffee shop because sometimes it's just the change in scenery that will kickstart you into work or into action. And I guess our code word is, what are you doing? Kind of basically seeing if the other one's available to meet up kind of thing. And so I texted Madeline. I said, what are you doing? And then I told her, I was heading to a coffee shop to get some motivation. And so she's like, I'm teaching a class right now. I've got a half hour till we go on break. What can you get done in that half hour? And I texted her back and I said, I'm going to work on email. Half hour later, she texted me and said, time's up. What are you going to do for the next hour? So I texted her back and said, I'm working on this and that. And then an hour later, she texted and said, done. Now you have until 1 p.m. What are you going to do? And, it was simply, all it was texting with her saying, what are you going to do for the next half hour? But that's what it took. And that's what got me to get through my email and get through whatever task that I wanted to do next. And the same thing happened last night. Sarah texted me and said, I'm struggling to motivate myself to get through email. And she had been in meetings the past few days, so her email had kind of built up. And it was pretty late. It was maybe 8-ish, between 8 and 9, I think. And I called her and I said, all right, can you get through 30 emails, 30? And who knows, a lot of it may have been spam that she would just have to delete. But, once you get going, it's a lot easier to stay going. And I said, can you get through 30 emails? And so then she texted me and said she got through 35 and was heading to bed. So, it's not like if she didn't get through it, she was going to get in trouble or, there was going to be some penalty for it. It's just somehow just having that connection with someone else just kind of kickstarts us. And so I wanted to just share that with you. One, to thank them, but two, to share that with you. If you're a business owner and there are some days where you just can't seem to get moving, find yourself a business buddy who you can just reach out and say, look, I got to get through email, or I got to get this one project done or get started on this one task, but I'm struggling. Can you meet me at a coffee shop? Or just say, I'm struggling. And then they're going to say, all right, what can you get done in the next half hour? And just having that there is tremendous in the power to get through whatever task you're putting off. So just a quick tidbit, just wanted to share. If that works for you, if you try it and it works, let us know. Or if you have another tip you want to share with our community about ways that help you get motivated, feel free to share it. But I think, especially as business owners, it can get kind of lonely. And if you have a business buddy who can be there for you and who understands what you're going through, and you can reach out to them, even for something as little as, I don't feel like working today, do it and set that up and keep it going, because it's a pretty powerful. All right, so on to today's topic. Today's topic is a tech tool topic, and I wanted to share with you. It's called Process Street. I just learned about it a few weeks ago. I will say, if you've watched a few of my videos, you know that I'm big on systems, and I'll use us as an example. We have a pretty robust system for onboarding new clients. I'd say within Process Street, it's about 20 steps. Now, that gets down to the nitty gritty, like an email that we send to a client at a certain point. That is one of our steps. You know what I mean? So it's pretty specific. So, don't worry. We don't make it hard for our clients to join us. But anyway, as you probably guessed, we had that system built long before I even heard of Process Street, and I'm pretty proud of it. I feel like it works well. There are 3 of us that each have our own role within those 20 steps, and we're responsible for different steps, and it all seems to work well. And so when I learned of Process Street, I was like, well, do I really need it? Because we have a system in place. It's not, and it's working. So it's not like, do we really need something to tell us what our system is? Because we have one. But I thought I'd give it a shot, and I thought I'd try it out and just see what I think about it. And so I'll say this. The way Process Street works is you have what's called a template. So let's come up with a basic system. So a system like onboarding new clients. Let's say, step 1 is sending them the contract. And then step 2 is sending them the invoice. And then step 3 is creating a file for them in your system. And then step 4 is making your first appointment with them. So very basic, like 4 steps to onboard a new client. So in Process Street, that would be called a template, where you have those 4 steps. And then when you get a new client, say her name is Jane Doe, you do what's called, you run a checklist. And so basically you go to that template, you click run a checklist, you name it Jane Doe, and now you've got those 4 steps specifically for Jane Doe. And then you get John Doe, who joins, and then you run another checklist and you name it John Doe. So that's the difference between template and checklist. So I say that to share that Process Street does have a free version, and the free version is you can have up to 5 templates, but probably more importantly, you can have 5 active checklists. So it doesn't matter if they're all under one template or spread out across multiple templates. You can only have 5 active checklists at any given time. And I am the queen of free versions. I don't like to invest in software, especially nowadays where it's $12 a month if you pay for a year, but then it's $20 if you pay for it monthly, right? Because I don't like to commit for that long, because there's just so much new technology coming out all the time. My business is changing. It's constantly improving. So a tool that I buy now might no longer be useful for me 3 months from now. So I don't like to buy. I try as much as possible to use the free versions or stay within the confines of a free version for various tech tools. So I say that to say that within a week, I bought Process Street. It was pretty transformational for our business so far. It's only been a couple weeks, but I was pretty impressed with it. There are a couple of things that I thought I would like to see differently, and I did share with them that, and so who knows, but I thought it was pretty powerful, and here's why. So yes, we do have a system in place, a system established with clear lanes of responsibility for onboarding our new clients, but we didn't have a way to track it. And let me rephrase that. We didn't have an easy way to track it, because we put it in our CRM, but it just doesn't, I don't know, it just was cumbersome. It was clunky. And to get even more specific, as you may have noticed from my various Facebook Lives, I've been traveling quite a bit since August. I went to Seattle, I went to Europe, I went to Palm Springs and San Diego, and then I went to New York. And so it's kind of like nonstop. And the problem with that is, I was going for conferences and things like that. And so I would go neck deep into a conference and then resurface and be like, hey guys, where are we at? Where are we at with this? Where are we at with that? Poor Shampuria, I would blow up her phone saying, what about this client? What about that client? Where are we at with this? Why did that happen like that? And so she would have to basically explain everything. And this was happening like every week or so when I would resurface, and she'd have to basically catch me up. Kind of like, I just had this image of, someone who has amnesia and they come to, and you have to catch them up on everything that's happened while they were gone. And so they had to go through that. But also, as I kind of alluded to, I'm a big proponent of having clear lanes of responsibility, because in order for a system to work effectively, everyone needs to know their role. They need to know what tasks are covered under that role, and they need to know when those tasks should be done. And when I had a corporate job, it drove me nuts. Like, we had our lanes of responsibility, everything was working fine, and then our boss left, and her boss came in to sort of backfill while they searched for her replacement. And he knew us, but he also didn't know us, right? So he would assign tasks, like say a task that would have been in my lane of responsibility, he'd assign it to someone else. So then it just chaos ensued. And also it's kind of like, well, why didn't you have me do it? But at the same time, it's just like, why are they doing it? They don't know the way everything works for that task. Like, why did you do that? And it was incredibly frustrating. And so just a little backstory, but also just that's how I tend to work. Like, if I have a clear lane of responsibility for my team, then things run more efficiently. So while I was doing all this traveling, I wasn't as responsive, and one of the teammates noticed, and that because of that, we weren't being as responsive to our clients, which is risky. One, it doesn't make for a pleasant experience for our clients, especially if they're just joining us. It doesn't have a good impression, but also things weren't going as smoothly as they should. And so as a result, he took action, and he jumped in and started taking care of things that needed to be done. At the same time, those were outside of his lanes of responsibility. And so he didn't know exactly how things were done, but also chaos ensued, because then, some clients received the same email from 3 of us, and some clients didn't receive any email because we weren't sure who was doing what. We lost track of that. And I'm not trying to blame anyone on it. I'm just trying to say that it happens to the best of us. Even though we had a system in place, and even though we had clear lanes of responsibility, we got into a bit of confusion and chaos when, rightfully so, people started doing things outside of their lane. Right around that time, I stopped traveling, so I resurfaced and we got everything back on track. But we also started using Process Street. And that was part of why I'm so hooked on it, because it allows us to keep track of where each client is in the onboarding process. It allows us to comment to each other within that system. As you know, I abhor email. And also it's just kind of, how do I want to say this? I feel like email is sort of a catch-all basket. And if you think about, there's a business term called batching, and that's usually used in supply chain management. But basically it's this idea where if you do a bunch of the same task at once, or order the same supplies at once, things run more efficiently. So rather than print 1 t-shirt at a time, you're going to print 20, and the machine is able to do that more quickly than, 1 at a time. So that's the whole idea. And I just feel like email is like the antithesis of batching. And so what I'm realizing is when you have something like Process Street, and you have a checklist for each client, and you can comment specifically on what's going on with that client in their checklist, you're basically now batching, and it just makes things more efficient. So there's a couple benefits, right? With Process Street, you kind of get this high picture overview of where we're at with each client, but also our communications around each new client is consolidated in one place. So then we're better able to keep track of what's going on and move more quickly and more efficiently around that. The other thing, that's a dog. The other thing that I like about Process Street is there's a lot of integration possibility. They use Zaps, and they have a lot of integration through Zaps. And for example, we haven't set it up yet, but I am working on it, where when a new client is ready to start with us, they fill out a form in Jot form, that gives us the information we need to start searching for the right freedom makers to match them with. And so basically, there's a zap that we're going to add where when someone fills out that form in JotForm, it automatically creates a checklist for them in Process Street and populates the information we need in order to start our matching process. And so there's different zaps with JotForm, with MailChimp, with what's the other one? Slack. Like they have all different types of integrations already existing. And then of course you can create your own as well. Another thing that happened is once I signed up for the paid version, someone from Process Street reached out to me and scheduled an orientation with me. And so we just had that Tuesday, and he went into my template and started literally showing me, oh, here's how you could make this one more efficient, or here's how you could make this one flow from that one more easily. And literally within my own template, and with my permission, of course, but it wasn't some generic, here's how things work. He's like, here's the template you've built. Here's how some quick ways you could make it better. And just showing me how to use Process Street even more, like optimize it even more. So I really appreciated that. And so, when you sign up for the paid version, you should probably get that type of service as well. So anyway, I'm talking about, I guess I'm sharing with you a tool that I think could be useful for your business. And if you have a VA, a virtual assistant, you can use it with them. And so it's a way for you to keep track of where they are and what they're doing and the different tasks that you want them to accomplish that regularly repeat. It's a great tool to manage that and to keep track of it. So that's why I named this one Keeping Track of Systems, because it'll help you. I mean, in a way, it could help you create a system, although I'm not the biggest fan of using technology to create a system. I think it's better to create a system and then find the technology tools that will help you execute it more efficiently. Although Process Street does have pre-established templates you can use. But it's just a way that so you can keep track of your system. You can keep track of if someone else is doing the system. You can keep track of where they are with it. You can assign tasks to people. So it's really, I think, quite an interesting and powerful tool for small business owners for making sure that nothing's really falling through the cracks with your repeatable tasks that need to happen. Well, that's it for now. And I hope this is useful for you. If you do end up using it, please share with us your thoughts. And I wish you the best of the end of the week. And we'll see you next week. Cheers.